All right, hello. Good to be here. The last time I gave a talk in Kentucky was about 20 years ago. So it's been a while.
Nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed. Well, it was actually a job talk at Vanderbilt, and I didn't get the job, so, I felt a little squeamish coming in here. It brings back some scary memories, but no, it was good. It was a good place. And of course, the other times I've been to Kentucky and been for visits to the Creation Museum, which you probably don't want to hear about. I'd be embarrassed too, but there it is. Okay. So, what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about this conflict. And it really is a conflict, that we're having a battle between science and religion, although you'll find people on both sides who sit there denying it, trying to claim that we're all perfectly compatible. But you see, I'm a science educator, and I'm also an atheist, and some of you may know I'm a rather loud atheist, and there are a few things I've heard more than once in my career that I found rather irritating in this battle, particularly this denial that is going on. And so what I thought I'd do today is I'd talk about a few of these arguments and get them off my chest and relieve a little bit of this tension that builds every time I hear these aggravating things. See, one thing I've often been told is that I must find proselytizing for atheism far more important than teaching science, because obviously some people find atheism scary. Don't know why, but they do. And people ask me, aren't I worried that by associating science with godlessness, that what I'm going to do is send religious people scurrying off to find comfort with creationism? That this combination, some would call it conflation of science and atheism, is going to drive people into religion. The argument has a few problems on a couple of levels, though. One is, and I think this is a big one, it is not my job as a science educator to reaffirm your delusions. And if reality terrifies you so much that you want to run away and join a freak show, I'm not going to tailor my message to accommodate intellectual cowards. Another is, if you think atheism is scary, you shouldn't look into science. Science is far, far scarier than the simple idea that God doesn't exist. But let me try to introduce this question in a way that is less likely to make me kind of hulk out, because when Christians confront me with this, I tend to get rather pissy with them. But it sort of helps when you have people on your own side that you respect who bring up these same questions, because they are legitimate questions. These are good questions to ask. So I want to give you a quote from a good friend of mine, this guy, Lawrence Krauss. You've heard of him, right? The physicist Lawrence Krauss. He's got a great new book out. You should read it. He does great stuff. Anyway, a couple of years ago, he did an interview for Scientific American with Richard Dawkins. And the first page, if you look this up, this works. This is just an excerpt from this. And what he says here is, this is Lawrence Krauss. He's talking to Richard Dawkins, and he's asking, I wonder which is more important, using the contrast between science and religion to teach about science, or trying to put religion in its place. And he says, teaching is seduction. I agree with that. He says, telling people on the other hand that their deepest beliefs are simply silly, even if they are, and that they should therefore listen to us to learn the truth, ultimately defeats subsequent pedagogy. So, like I said, this is a guy I like. I get along with him quite well. He's bringing up a serious question here. I can tell you right now that if he were in the same position now, this was several years ago, he asked this, right now Lawrence Krauss is probably as fanatical an atheist as Richard Dawkins, so no, this question wouldn't come up again. But this was what he was thinking about this issue. Anyway, he's interrogating Dawkins about his goals, this usual thing. Which is more important? Advancing the understanding of science in an audience embedded in the social context of religion, or trying to criticize religion itself? And what about tactics? Is offending people by jumping on their beliefs a useful way to break up preconceptions, or does it drive them away? And Dawkins gave a short answer. It's a good answer, but it was kind of short. What he said is, he says, yes, it's a good idea to seduce people to your ideas, but the key thing is nobody admires a dishonest seducer. And that's the problem with this tactic. If we try to pretend that religion and science get along hunky-dory, they're good buddies, they're best buddies, what we're basically doing as scientists is lying to people. And that should repel us on a very deep level. That's not what scientists do. You see, it's a key point for all of us as scientists. The role of the scientist is to be honest to the evidence. And when we start fudging our answers to meet the expectations of an audience, we've already thrown away the one thing that makes a scientist an honest arbitrator of the data. This is something we should not do. We're betraying science when we do that. And another reason is that if the scientists are asked to be silent on issues of science, because it might be confrontational, it might annoy religious people, then who is going to speak out for science? That's the thing, it's like they're asking us scientists, be quiet about this conflict, stop bringing it up because it scares people away. But what I want to ask them is, well, if I shut up, who's going to be talking about it? Who are you going to bring in to address these issues? And usually the answer is nobody. We'll just let the issue die. But we can't let it die because it's a serious current problem. I want to give you one classic example of this. This is a problem of creationism and how it's reaching into our schools. And this one really annoys me because this is a story that comes from a very good school in an affluent Connecticut suburb. So in this case, we're talking about a well-funded school. It's got buckets of money. It's got a special mission to teach science. And it's not in those places that we always use to scare people. Oh, the South. Kentucky is full of ignorant fundamentalists, right? Oh, come on. Look at you. You guys are, you're the exception here. You're supposed to be saying, no, that's okay. But yeah, it's true that it's not just the South, it's also the Yankee states that have the same problem. So this is the story. A science teacher in the 3rd to 5th grade talented and gifted program at Weston School in Connecticut proposed this course. Mr. Tangeroni is his name. And he proposed a special course to the administration that would explore the history of an idea. And there it is. It says, to learn about Darwin, students would retrace the path of the HMS Beagle, the expedition that inspired young Darwin's theory of evolution. And each student would study a stop in the voyage, reporting on the animals and adaptations that Darwin observed. This sounds like an excellent project, doesn't it? I mean, it's integrating so many things. This is science, this is sociology, this is history, this needs these little philosophy in here. This is what a good synthetic program of science ought to be doing. So anyway, he proposed this to the administration. And I would have thought this would sail through, but no, it was rejected by the school administration. And here's the reasoning. This is the principal, Mark Ribbons, who made this argument. He says, while evolution is a robust scientific theory, it is a philosophically unsatisfactory explanation for the diversity of life. Whoa, wait a moment. I think we're seeing a problem here. It says, I could anticipate the number of our parents might object to this topic. It is not appropriate to have Darwin's work or the theory part of the TAG program since the topic is not age appropriate. Now here's some of the shocking things about this. Not only the ignorance about the science of evolution, thinking it is philosophically unsatisfactory, but notice that this was a preemptive exclusion of this program. No parents had complained. No parents knew about this yet. This was in the preliminary stages of a proposal to teach a course. So no one had complained yet. And the principal decided to make sure that no one did by shutting it down. So this did not take place. So that's kind of sad right there. That the creationists have us so cowed that we will censor ourselves. Our schools will censor themselves in order to avoid offending religious sensibilities. But it gets worse. This isn't all that Ribbons wrote about this, so I'll give you a little bit more of his reasoning here. So he says, evolution touches on the core belief we share common ancestry with other living organisms. And every biologist in this room would say, why yes, of course, obviously, the data is all there. And most of you who are at all informed about biology would say the same thing. Yeah, we've got lots of us. And then he says, what does it mean to be a human being? Okay. Shouldn't our understanding of what it means to be a human being be based on the evidence, the knowledge that we have? Well, anyway, he says, I don't believe this core belief is one in which you want to debate with children or their parents. And I know personally that I would be challenged. Okay, this is not saying much to say that this guy would be challenged, but okay. He would be challenged in the 10-year-old through this sort of discussion while maintaining the appropriate sensitivity to a family's religious beliefs or traditions. Whoa, think about this. Your jaws should just drop at this reasoning. So, our students are not to consider deep and significant questions. Questions that I would think are wonderful to give to 10-year-olds. When I was 10 years old, I was wondering about this stuff. I was in the library looking at this stuff. That and the sex books. But anyway, it's one of those things that I think is a universal interest in children. They want to know about these exotic, deep subjects. What does it mean to be who we are? Now, why does Ribbons not want this? Because challenging to him is a dirty word. We must maintain appropriate sensitivity to religious beliefs. I could do that, I suppose. I think appropriate sensitivity means pointing out that a pack of cherished superstitions should not trump evidence and reason, and I might be able to do this without using the bullshit word. It would be a strain, but I think I could probably do it in an appropriate venue. But see, this is a violation of the whole spirit of education. And education is supposed to make you think. It is supposed to confront you with new ideas. It is supposed to be a challenge that makes you stronger, deeper, and smarter. These are the attitudes of someone who thinks education should comfort, reassure, and never ever change the ideas we had to begin with. This is education as a form of religion. And this is why education as a subset of atheism would be far superior. That thought horrifies some people, though. How can we, a people who supposedly value diversity, think that one view of the universe is actually superior to other people's view of the universe? I think we have to. That's what it means to be a scientist, is that we try to seek out the truth as well as we can understand it, and we find the correct answers. And we think the correct answers are superior to the wrong answers. That's the way we work. That's what we should be doing. And right now in this country, we're clearly doing something wrong. Here's the result of a recent poll of science literacy in the U.S., and it's kind of terrifying. So, look at the top part, just the top part from what it says. Think sound travels faster than light. 14% of people in this country do that. 33% disagree that the Earth goes around the sun once in a year. Okay, that's kind of a deep misunderstanding there. My favorite, though, is number 6. Thinks ordinary tomatoes do not have genes, but genetically modified tomatoes do.